One Assyrian king had the skin flayed from rebel leaders, and then ordered the details carved into stone, not to hide it, but to advertise it.
That empire went on to become the most feared power the ancient world had ever seen. Then, within a single generation, it collapsed so completely that its greatest cities were lost and forgotten for over 2,000 years. To understand why Assyria mattered so much, you need to picture Mesopotamia around 900 BC, modern-day Iraq and Syria.
This was a landscape of competing city-states and kingdoms that had existed in various forms for over 1,000 years.
Out of that landscape, one kingdom, centered on the city of Assur, transformed itself into something the region had never seen before. A true empire, built and held together largely through calculated, deliberate terror.
Assyria itself was ancient, even by ancient stands. Assyrian colonies, true that its long colonies existed as early as 2000 BC.
But the empire that made the ancient world tremble is what historians call the neo-Assyrian Empire, beginning around 900 BCE.
Kings like Ashurbanipal II expanded the kingdom's borders and left inscriptions boasting, in explicit detail, about mutilating and impaling captured rebels as a warning to anyone who considered resisting.
His successors turned that brutal reputation into an actual system of government. The Poiva Ashurbanipal from Lexonian.
Conquered populations were often deported whole to distant parts of the empire, breaking up rebellions before they could start.
A network of roads and relay messengers let the king in the capital receive news from the empire's edges within days. It was, in a very real sense, one of history's first true administrative empires. Not just a kingdom that won battles, but one that knew how to hold what it conquered. Under Tirlak-Pileser III, starting in 745 BEE, Assyria became a true empire in the modern sense, with a professional standing army, and conquered territories run directly as provinces rather than loosely controlled vassals. His successor, Sargon II, pushed the borders further still, conquering the kingdom of Israel's capital in 722 BC.
Sargon's son, Sennacherib, built the city of Nineveh into one of the greatest cities in the ancient world. And in 701 BCE, laid siege to Jerusalem.
The city didn't fall. Assyrian records say its king paid a massive tribute to make the Assyrians leave, while later biblical accounts describe a plague striking the Assyrian camp. Either way, Sennacherib went home without the conquest, though he made sure the rest of the region understood he'd won everywhere else. He even had Babylon itself destroyed a few years later after it rebelled, an act so severe it shocked even the Assyrians' own allies.
His son, Esarhaddon, rebuilt Babylon. Then, in 671 BCE, did something no Mesopotamian king had ever managed. He conquered Egypt. Across the landscape.
For a brief moment, the Assyrian Empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Nile.
Esarhaddon's son, Ashurbanipal, is remembered for something very different. He built a massive library at Nineveh, gathering tens of thousands of clay tablets, including the oldest known copy of the Epic of Gilgamesh.
In many ways, we know as much as we do about ancient Mesopotamia because Ashurbanipal wanted to know everything about it himself.
But even during his reign, cracks were showing.
Egypt broke away and regained its independence around 656 BCE.
And when Ashurbanipal died around 631 CCE, the empire he left behind plunged almost immediately into a succession crisis, with rival candidates fighting for the throne at exactly the moment Assyria could least afford instability. Sensing weakness, a Babylonian general named Nabopolassar declared independence around 626 BC and began systematically attacking Assyrian territory, eventually aligned with a rising power to the east, the Medes.
Together, the Babylonians and the Medes tore the empire apart with shocking speed.
The city of Assur, the empire's ancient religious heart, fell in 614 BCE.
2 years later, in 612 BCE, the combined armies besieged and utterly destroyed Nineveh itself, the greatest city Assyria had ever built.
The destruction was so thorough that Nineveh's ruins were essentially lost to history for the next 2,000 years, not properly rediscovered until the 1800s.
A remnant of the Assyrian court fled west and tried to make a final stand at Harlan. This time, backed by an unlikely ally, Egypt. Egypt apparently preferred a weakened Assyria as a buffer body over a newly powerful Babylon. But that brutal scene of chaotic melee erupts, the Babylonian soldiers pour through. It didn't work.
By 609 BCE, that last Assyrian foothold fell as well, and the empire that had dominated the ancient Near East for nearly 3 centuries simply ceased to exist as a political power.
Historians still debate exactly why the collapse happened so fast. Some point to decades of relentless military campaigning that exhausted Assyria's own manpower. Others it's a success crisis after Ashurbanipal's death, which gave rivals the opening they needed. That an empire built this heavily on terror and deportation was always going to be abandoned the moment it looked weak, because almost none of the people it ruled actually wanted it to survive.
Assyria's political empire was gone, but its innovations weren't. Later empires, including the Persian Empire, borrowed directly from Assyrian ideas about provincial administration and royal road networks.
And Ashurbanipal's library, buried in the rubble of Nineveh, preserved texts that would otherwise have been lost forever.
Ironically, it survived because the very fire that destroyed the city baked its clay tablets hard, protecting them for archaeologists to find millennia lately.
The empire that made the ancient world tremble didn't just disappear without a trace. It disappeared as a political power, but it left behind the blueprint that the next generation of empires would use to try to last longer than it did.